Okay, so can I start? Okay, thanks for me to give this talk. Okay, it's not a talk technical, it's more like a tutorial.
You are talking.
Sorry?
You are talking, so it's a talk.
Oh, okay, yeah, perfect. But I can only show pictures and not speak at all. But okay, anyway, so this tutorial slash talk, as you prefer, is called Error Budget in Flux Tunable Architecture. So the main idea of this tutorial is try to identify all the wrong things that the community is doing when trying to modeling these devices. So this one is the structure, will give us a kind of list what are the errors that we expect in this particular architecture. So I will introduce a little bit about the architecture of those devices together with the circuit Hamiltonian. I mean, we will not go that crazy in that part. Explain a little bit about the working principle of the flux tunable gate. In our case, or in my case, I will focus mostly on implementing either iSwap or diabatic control set. And then we try to explain a little bit of the leakage characterization. Alright, so in principle, these flux tunable things seems to be very nice because theoretically you can obtain 99% fidelity. But the truth is that from modeling to interacting with the electronics, we have a bunch of possible errors. So in principle, we have errors that came from the magnetic flux that we use for manipulating this device that can be expected in three types of errors in principle, according to our friend Rami, which is pulse tapes, which means that when you send a microwave drive to our device, we have a tail that the time scale of actions is always longer than the time of the gate, which is represented in the dynamics as a non-Markovian effect. The other one that is the flux errors is mostly related that distortion came from your wave generators. In the sense that you wanted to send a pulse in the, for example, the charge quadrature, but because of the electronics is not that perfect, you send an additional pulse in the current quadrature. So if you think, for example, in qubit, means that you want to drive or perform a sigma x, but you're also performing a sigma y, so you need to correct that. In principle, we can use, or the most typical thing is do reverse engineering to the transfer function of the electronics, so we have a kind of profile over the frequencies that we are sending our microwave thing. We can reverse engineering that, and we can correct this effect. The third one, which is the worst for all superconducting communities, the 1 over F noise. I mean, as you are having this, in principle, Transmon, which is the architecture relay on this flux tunable gate, suffers a lot of 1 over F noise. In the sense that this flux is starting to oscillate, it might introduce dephasing, depending on the correlation time of this 1 over F noise. You have something also like quasi-particle poisoning, in the sense that you have a Cooper pairs in your device, they break, and you have transport an electron, and this changes your device and destroy all the properties of your very nice qubit. Okay, sorry for this, a lot of errors, so it wasn't my. So then we have this rotating wave approximation error that all people like to do these things, and the reality is that you have some kind of mismatching between the frequencies when you include or didn't include those terms in your modeling. Also, the time-dependent diagonalization, as we have these flux tunable devices where the fluxes are time-independent. People in the literature always treat as a time-dependent problem, and this introduced also a lot of errors. Now we can, for example, use.
Sorry, can you explain this?
Sorry?
Can you explain this from waving the time?
Okay, so in principle we have when we try to find the effective model of this flux tunable gate, we use this second order modeling for the Hamiltonian, where we need to calculate the Schrieffer-Wolff transformations. And the point is that always the people eliminate this contribution that depends on the derivative of the transformation. And the point is that this derivative introduces a lot of error because it's proportional to the error that you want to cancel.
This is more or less the same as the rotating wave.
In principle, no, because this one is came from, for example, when you have your capacity coupling with the transmon, you neglect the counter-rotating terms in the field, and then you diagonalize perturbatively this model with already the rotating wave approximation. Also, something that we can explore.
So the adiabatic approximation may help you in this regard?
Sorry?
Adiabatic approximation may help you in this regard?
Yeah, I mean, in principle, if we want to do the things right, we need to consider these time dependencies in the diagonalizations. And okay, also we can explore for optimal circuit parameters to obtain better properties in our transmon. I don't know, enhance harmonicity, longer coherence times. So this is kind of open questions. Also because of this problem of the rotating wave approximation, and the time independent diagonalization, we have frequency matching that translate in phase errors in our gate or in leakage. And we have also these always on set interactions that also people hate, or most of the people call, we have this kind of coherent and incoherent crosstalk, which is basically a mutual inductance effect between if you have two or more of these architectures interacting together. Okay, with this, let me.
I have two questions. One thing is that nowadays in the experiment, is it difficult to recognize this 1 over F noise? For instance, normally people say that it's difficult to measure or recognize this 1 over F noise one.
Yeah, I mean, in our case, according to the electronic of Rami, because we are very sticky to this, because from lab to lab the electronic change a lot. This 1 over F noise, it has many, how to say, I forgot the word. We have many components in the sense that one came from the typical electronic that introduced this frequency mismatching at the moment of your DNA, because you are very restricted to the sampling frequency of your electronic. So below that you cannot assume anything because you cannot measure it. And another one is that as the mostly of all of the electronic is outside of the fridge, you have this temperature component. So we have some kind of cable losses, this problem with the electronics. So in principle, the experimental that it does is, it start to do a lot of measurement, a lot of sampling, and they can give us this transfer function that is frequency dependent, and we can reverse engineering using these techniques of microwave engineering, and at the end of the day.
Regarding this time-dependent diagonalization, and I don't know whether this procedure relevant to adiabatic evolution or some names in advanced metaphysics. People want to reduce the multiple level Hamiltonian to reduce this Hamiltonian to some two-level system or whatever. Do you mean that?
Yeah, I mean, the point is that always in this flux tunable architecture, our Hilbert space is transmon 1, coupler, and transmon 2. And we wanted to use this adiabatic elimination to trace out the coupler. But the point that this coupler is time dependent because the flux that we send it to there is time dependent, so it started to appear this.
So when you reduce the Hamiltonian, somehow these interactions get involved, but this is approximate.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Alright, so the architecture, after this, a lot of error problem, we have the device that we wanted to work with, and this is the flux tunable architecture. So we have the 2 qubit, which is our Exmon qubit, and the coupler. So in principle, the coupler has two control lines. One is for readout and for implementing single qubit rotations. In the coupler, we need this antenna that is the one that manipulates the coupling frequency or the flux in the coupler. And in principle, we can assume that the second qubit can be also tunable. But it is very nice in the sense that you can control more easily the resonance conditions for activating your gate. But the problem is that your T1s and T2 will be always smaller than that people call fixed frequency transforms. So then, in that case, the circuit Hamiltonian of this device, assuming that each of them has a node variables, is given by that. We can obtain the Hamiltonian but applying Legendre transformation and using our quantization over quantized operator. So here we use some colors to relate it with the error that I spoke at the beginning, and we can know that the Josephson energies here are related with these flux parameter that introduce this distortion, this 1 over F noise, these flux tails, and so on. And the second problem with the modeling of the transmon, and now it's a kind of personal problem with IBM, in the sense that they quantize this transmon using a harmonic oscillator basis. And the thing that they do is expand this guy up to fourth order to have these anharmonicity corrections. But the key point is that when you do this approximation, you are neglecting like 60% of your interacting Hamiltonians because you only keep with your diagonal elements. They are assuming no, but we are doing a rotating wave approximation. But the problem is that we are doing a static problem. You are just diagonalizing, so it makes absolutely no sense from my perspective that they neglect these terms. Where, in principle, for example, the transmon has this charge basis, which is definitely much efficient at the moment of diagonalize. If you consider a transmon with the dimension 7, you might have errors to 10 to the minus 6 in the fourth energy level. So it is pretty nice basis for quantize specifically that device. And another thing is that this charge operator, when you use this representation, you only have ladder interactions. But the point is that this problem has a parity. So when you do this, you are also eliminating almost by hand important transitions that at the end it will be additional leakage or phase error channels. Okay, so then if we follow the literature and use these harmonic oscillator representations and we rewrite our Hamiltonian, here we have this problem of performing the rotating wave approximation in this part in the interacting Hamiltonian, because we are neglecting, for example, B dagger K with Bj, and the point is that when you calculate the effective couplings and you don't consider these counter-rotating terms, you have a frequency shift like proportional to 1 gigahertz, which is a lot in this platform. So here is the first problem. Okay, it's like the fifth problem in the sense that, okay, we have this problem with the modeling of the transmon, and also we have the problem with if we neglect or not the counter-rotating terms in the Hamiltonian. And then our idea is, okay, we have this truncated Hamiltonian and we wanted to diagonalize. So for doing the diagonalization of the perturbative diagonalization, we use the Schrieffer-Wolf generator, which is given by these expressions. The problem with that is that, if you can remember from the previous slides, is that G the tunings are in principle time-dependent parameters. So I guess that I don't have the expression, maybe I can use the board. So in principle, if we wanted to calculate the effective Hamiltonian, let's call it at second order. We have to put the H, the commutator with H, the second order one. But also need to appear these terms, that is and people, as they assuming that it's a time dependent, make this one go to 0, which in principle is not correct.
Yes, probably it's also the same for voltage, but it's something that is on transmission in the second one.
The generator has to be always anti-emission, but the effective Hamiltonian is always emission.
One question. In the last slide, you said that one problem can be like to neglect the control terms, and now you speak about make the simple work approximation that is a perturbative approximation.
Yes.
So, if you want to work in a regime where the contracting terms are important, can you work in a perturbative way? Because lambda, the lambda, if you express the Hamiltonian like this, you use lambda v, and v is the interaction. If lambda is big, you have to care about the contracting terms, but you can make a perturbative analysis.
Yeah, actually, this is also our question in the sense that there is some kind of inconsistency between this perturbative analysis and trying to consider the rotating, considering the counter-rotating terms. So yeah, we need to start to do some kind of analysis about what we need to do, because in principle that is true also that even though the couplings are larger, the thing that defines if we are in the perturbative regime or not is usually G divided by the tuning. So then, for example, if we are separated in frequencies 3 GHz, even though our coupling is, 100 MHz divided by 3 GHz, we're still in a regime where we can still do this kind of perturbative diagonalization. Of course, that is also very interesting that we can do this perturbative diagonalization in an iterative way, in the sense that, we eliminate the coupler, appears these unwanted terms, we diagonalize again using these perturbative things, and so on. So in principle, it seems that this recursive treatment seems to be much efficient, for example, to do Magnus expansions, because Magnus expansion, if your coupling are not bound, the Magnus expansion tends to diverge. So yeah, that is true that, still we are in this characterization stage that we need to try to understand first if the theoretical things that people are doing are correct, or is the same that people are observing in the laboratory. Still, we don't have that answer because Rami just received the chip like 2 weeks ago, so it's starting to cool down, calibrate. So, but the point is to say, okay, Rami, you have this error, we have this receipt to correct it, you have this error, and so on. So we are trying to do this kind of receipt in the sense that, depending the type of error that you are observing in your lab, you can use this technique to correct it.
Yeah, what kind of transitions do you expect to appear with these extra terms?
Usually in the chart at the end, we have the typical ladder, there's J plus 1, but also have J plus 3. In principle, for example, if you solve this, the wave function of that, you have that the Transmon Hamiltonian, and it's very similar to a Bloch problem. You have parity pi in your system. So you have that these two states that are separated by pi in the circle have the same parity, and that is why this matrix element is different to 0.
The transition frequency from J to J plus 3 would be like
2 times the one, or no, 3 times.
In principle, this is actually a very interesting question because it will depend on your range of EG over EC.
But more or less what Ramon scales as square root of 2.
This one no, because it's 0, 3. If you this one, you in principle you might have is root square of J. Roughly speaking, because it's not like that. But for example, we have some plot about this matrix element as a function of EG over EC. Sorry, I owe you a lot of plot. So, but we have that. This is the behavior, and this one is 50, which is usually the regime that IBM uses. So there is a problem that this transition is not always 0 because I expect that you have here. It makes a lot of sense to neglect it because you are not seeing this effect in any rotating frame. But the truth is that this 0-3 transition is very high, even though for this transmon regime. So at some point, I don't know how precise are the things there. And also the point is that these people use this fictitious rotating way that always neglect. Always care about the leakage channel that they want to or they can control. So it depends a lot on the frame that you are looking at your dynamics. Okay, so then in that case we have this discussion about the circuit parameters that we were using. I mean, this one is circuital parameters, so don't care much about it. This table is the effective ones, so you can see that if you have tunable architectures, your T1s, RT2, or your T2 mainly, are always worse than the fixed frequency coupling. So this is limiting a lot your gating time, and that is why you wanted to accelerate this gate using quantum control techniques.
This is due to the phasing, because it's like the qubit one of the fixed frequency, right?
Yeah. So this one is because as you are having this 1 over F noise in your device, your energy level starts to fluctuate.
Then why do you have like the just some energy of qubit 2 so small compared to the others? Is there a reason? Or just
Yeah, this is an interesting thing. There is some work that if you have two transmon coupled, but the difference in anharmonicity is very large, you can, I don't remember if it was polynomial or exponentially suppression of the set coupling. So you are trying to eliminate this quantum crosstalk from designing the transmon with this difference in frequencies.
Yeah, but the rating more or less is similar.
Yeah, I mean, in principle, we wanted to make these guys larger, around 7 or 6 point something, to have always at least 2 gigahertz of difference in order to have these perturbative conditions. Okay, so now I will change a little bit the topic, not to speak about problems, it's more about how this flux gate works. So the first things that we need to do is, okay, we have this effective model with these couplings that depends on the fluxes, and we need to set something that we call the idling configuration, which means that we need to find the values of the flux in the coupler such that these effective interactions vanish. And this is the plot that I show here. That depending if we wanted to cancel out the control set or the I-swap interaction, we have very good protection because these couplings are around maximum 10 Hz. So if you compare with gigahertz, you are pretty well protected. So then the idea for implementing the I-swap is we need to open the interaction 0-1 with the 1-0. And the way that we do that is setting qubit 1 with qubit 2 on resonance, and let the system evolve for a time such that you perform the swap. In the case of the control set, we need to activate the 1 to 0 transition because in that case we are trying to do the diabatic control set. So the thing is that we perform a swap, then we try to return it back, but we wait the time such that the accumulated phases in this state is -1.
Yes. What is inter here? Omega 2 is equal to minus.
And sorry, this one is the anachronicity of the tandem 1.
So we are using the third level in order to do the.
Yes, so if you wanted to perform a diabatic control set, you need to go to the 2-0, wait until this phase accumulate and return it back. The problem with this control set interaction is that if your transmon 1 and transmon 2 are very similar in frequencies, you might have leakage to the other two states. So actually this is a very big problem, and in principle there is this gate that Google implemented called the FSIM, so which is that kind of composition between ISWAP and control set. Because in principle you cannot get rid of completely of this 0-2 leakage problem. So in case, okay, we cannot implement a purely swap gate, we cannot implement a pure control set, but the thing that we only need is a timing gate. So we do this mixing between swap and control set, and this is that the people call FSIM. And actually, I think that this FSIM was the people that used for this quantum supremacy experiment for this cross entropy thing. So they have this random circuit applied many times. Yeah, so now the idea is, okay, with these things, we wanted to compare how good is the Idrin configuration. So we expect that if the effective coupling is 0, whatever state where I am starting, it might not evolve. So this one is the error probability, that are all of them are at least to 10 to the -5 order of magnitude, so we might have some kind of oscillatory effect in the microsecond scale. So if you consider that your gain will be 30 or 60 nanoseconds, it is really idling the thing. Okay, what is next? And now finally some simulations about the gate. So in our case, for implementing the ISWAP, the thing that we need is to modulate this Kabler frequency in such a way that the area of the effective coupling be pi/2, and in that case we obtain this swapping between 0,1 and 1,0. On the case of the control swap, the thing that we need to do is to calculate that this area be equals to pi, such that the state came back and accumulate this phase equal to pi. Okay, so then now this is the thing of next.
This one you are not considering the possible leakage to in this simulation.
No. No, you don't want to see that now, so.
No, it's you don't want to see that.
So yeah, I mean, the point is that, okay, we need to characterize the leakage now, and this is exactly the question that Julian asked about how strong the coupling has to be in order to okay, consider this counter-rotating term, but still be in this perturbative approach. So yeah, I mean, contain the answer that I said. We need to do this analysis, do this kind of perturbative diagonalization in an iterative way, and then find until, I don't know, this stock conversion will have at least 4 nines, which is always we wanted. And then, yeah, there's something that we wanted to keep exploring. So this is artistic picture about how this crosstalk might affect the thing. So these, oh sorry, these circles correspond to these to the contour fields of the external flags and how they affect these. They affect two different qubits. So in principle, there is these techniques that you can write this mutual inductance matrix, and you can still reverse engineer it using machine learning or do it by hand. So in principle, you can mitigate these things. That is also pretty related with this distortion problem. That okay, we have this pulse, but because of the crosstalk, we have an additional component, so we need to deal with that.
So this flux is done by putting a flux line into the script of the.
Yes. So we have the chart. So we have the sweep. And here we have the antenna.
Okay, and do you have any idea, like, especially how long it reaches this flux line? I mean, how far apart two qubits need to be so that we can, like, neglect the effect on one side?
Okay, I think that from the experimental perspective, they don't ask that. They say, okay, we cannot put that apart the qubit within each other because the sampling size of the fridge is very limited. So I don't remember exactly the dimensions. So the thing is that, okay, as we are very limited by the space of when we can have this 20 millikelvin, so we need to deal, it's much easier to do control over these flags than separate the qubit in the space.
And there are no geometries in order to try to focus their.
I mean, in principle, I guess that linear arrays seems to be the best for this problem because you have.
I'm looking about the magnetic fields, other ways to interact with flags. Make the magnetic field more concentrated into a point.
Oh, okay. In that case, okay, I think that maybe the way to do it is decreasing the area of the antenna because okay, this one has a very pictorial things, but in principle you have something like that. So, but honestly, I don't know how expensive it is and how hard it is to fabricate these I don't know smaller antennas or something like that.
Well, to scale up, because here you have the linear array, you have two dimensional array. This is
Yeah. So actually, that is why we are using, or people are using this linear array because in principle, if you have all to all, then the problem scales is not exponential. I guess it's quadratic in this calibration thing. Because calibration usually experimentalists try to keep at is only optimized over one parameter, but as now need to optimize the crosstalk between all the qubit and with itself, so then you have more variables, and it seems that experimentalists don't like that. So I mean, I don't know, maybe IQM might have the answer because they have this star architecture that is aiming to have all-to-all connectivity. But honestly, I don't know how hard it is to have more concentrated magnetic fields, or if there is some. Maybe an idea is try to send several signals and make a destructive interference between them in order to keep individual addressing, let's say. Or also, I mean, as this came from electronics, again, if we have a transfer function, we can reverse engineering and neglect all these components.
I have one question. So normally, we have a kind of shortcut in this engineering. Normally, we want to design a shortcut which has the robustness with respect to some tuning errors, whatever. It means that if we want to apply shortcut to suppress the crossing talk, which means that we need a kind of sensitivity. Because for instance, we have 2 qubit and 2 qubit. Normally people apply the shortcut to design the capacity, they want to control these things simultaneously. But it seems that to suppress the crossing total, we have the opposite motivation. So somehow we want to control these things to avoid the effect of the other one, right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, the point is that, okay, people don't work that much with shortcut, they are more like drag, so they only wanted to put the hole in the frequency that you are having, or leakage or phase error. But an effective study about how this counter adiabatic term will looks like in this architecture seems to unexplored. I mean, these articles, if I remember correctly, is like 2 or 3 years ago. Oh, sorry, I go in the wrong direction. Let me find. Yeah, 2021. So I mean, there is still the first experiment. So I mean, there is it's still an open field. There is a lot of open questions about these flat things. I mean, from my experience in looking at the literature, people always prefer to do pre-processing using machine learning on this microwave stuff rather than, I don't know, implementing an additional terms in the Hamiltonian. So, I mean, that seems to be the current status of the literature. I mean, from the theoretical point of view, of course. Okay, so then this one is some kind of how to say, summary about the thing that was speaking about. Okay, we have this problem with the frequencies mismatching, a problem with the incomplete phase transformations, how we can deal with that using, I don't know, drag or shortcut, quantum control techniques, this parasitic interaction, that is the set interaction, that in principle people can mitigate it using different harmonicity in the transmons. The cluster, again, people use it more like calibration-based techniques than quantum control itself. Honestly, I don't know the reason behind that. This problem with 1 over f, that seems to be the main source of error in those devices.
And the number 2 level couplers are not also possibility to reduce it.
Reducing in which sense?
The parasitic interaction.
In principle, if you have this set interaction, you can use this Slepian quantum control, which is basically virtual set rotations.
No, I mean, you can also have tunable couplers, for instance.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Tunable couplers.
Yeah.
It's another way to control, to avoid this interaction, this parasitic interaction.
Yeah, actually, something that people are trying to do is using, for example, instead of 1 qubit for the coupler, 1 transmon for the coupler, 2 transmon. And you have this kind of protection, but seems to be overkill in the sense that now you have to, I mean, there is always a trade-off. Okay, we have to have more robust couplers between making it still simpler. So it's still this question about multiple circuit, how can help in this direction. So we asked this to Asier in Aachen, and he said that for now we want to keep simplest as we can, and we only focus in a single transmon, but maybe put a fluxonium because it seems to have more robustness again. Some type of noises will also be a possibility. So I mean, again, we are kind of limited by the thing that experimentally want to build, and think that. So yeah, basically like that. And I guess that with that, my project will finish.
What's this parasitic interaction?
So for example, in principle, we always have this problem of the substrate with the oxide in the device. Is start to appear some capacitive interaction that you are not considering. So you need to deal with that also. You have this problem that when you send the current in also in this substrate, you're starting to change the magnetic spin of the substrate, and still you have some kind of circulating current. From the point of view of the Hamiltonian, you have this set-set interaction that is always on. In principle, you might have this set-set, or also XX or YY. I mean, depends on your parameters. So
That is always present in the system.
yeah. So in principle, people do this kind of engineering of designing or choosing better system parameters to try to neglect that interaction, but you cannot always make it zero. You can always that the time associated to that process be longer than the time that you need for your gate, so you are kind of safe.
This architecture that you show, it contains like tunable couplers and tunable qubits. Are there anyone doing like this kind of architecture? Because usually it's like fixed frequency qubits and tunable couplers, or tunable qubits and fixed frequency couplers.
As I know, Rami wanted to do this linear chip with all tunable transformer and tunable couplers. So everything tunable.
Seems crazy.
No questions? No? And the second,